call this meeting to order at 7:02. Mr. Dowden, if you can please say the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Board, has public notice been given?
Yes, it has.
And everyone is in attendance except for Mr. Umbihan. And public comment. I see that we do have one person that would like to speak. Just read through the procedures. If there's anyone wishing to address the board tonight, please take a moment to fill out the registration form prior to public comment starting. Per policy 0167.3, anyone wishing to participate in the period of public comment must be a resident of the Richland School District, the parent or legal guardian of an enrolled district student, or an enrolled district student. Persons wishing to participate must be physically present at the meeting and must register in advance. A total allotment of 30 minutes will be given for public comment. Each participant shall be given 3 minutes to address the board. A translator may be used to translate verbal communication to the board. If such translation services are used, 6 minutes shall be given to that participant, with only the first 3 minutes being designated to the total time allotment. Speakers are not permitted to make inflammatory comments, use inappropriate language or gestures, attack specific persons, or make a specific person the subject of their remarks. Please see policy 0167.3 for a complete list of requirements and restrictions. If a person is unable to adhere to these rules, they may be directed to end their comments. Ms. Coleman, do you have anyone else?
No, just that one.
So Mr. Lee Vandenlyke?
Oh, you messed it up. Try it again.
Van Landijk,
There
sorry.
you go.
Had it backwards.
Took me years to learn too. My name is Lee Van Landijk. I'd like to introduce myself because there are 3 positions that are open for school board positions. 2 are incumbents that have no challengers. 1 is vacant, and that's Melissa's slot, Miss Melissa Wertz. And I did not find out about it until after the deadline had arisen. And so I'd like to kind of let people know who I am, because I am a run-in and people don't know my name and it won't be there, although the registrars at each of the voting places will have a list of names of people that had registered, and my name will be there. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about myself. I am a 32-year teacher, not old, but 32 years of teaching. I taught U.S. history and English. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I have a bachelor's degree from UW-Parkside, a master's degree from UW-Milwaukee. I was a 6-year volunteer here at Doudna. Amy was my first person to help out when she taught kindergarten, and I followed my granddaughter through until COVID hit, and then I stopped going because of my health. I'm a former Richland County Board Supervisor. I gave mine up because I was running against Marty Brewer, who was the chairman at the time, and I told him I wouldn't run against him. I am currently on the Health and Human Services and Veterans Committee for the county. I am a clerk at our church, clerk of session, kind of like clerk of council. I am pro-education, student, teacher, and administration. It's something that kind of goes together. I am in full compliance with the state funding of the schools. I think we've been done a great disservice since 2010. We've suffered a lot of cutbacks, and I think they need to be changed. I think parental involvement is important. I taught at public schools, but I also taught at parochial schools. I'm a 13-year graduate of parochial schools. So I've been well indoctrinated in religion and all that kind of stuff. And I think they've got a separate thing going, and separation of church and state is what I believe. I am against book banning. I think that has no place in education. If people don't want to do it at home, don't do it at home, but this is public schools. And they talk about eliminating things having to do with history. And I taught U.S. history, and I think there's an awful lot of stuff that we cannot afford to teach. We have to teach. We've all learned through our mistakes. You don't learn when everything's good. You learn through your mistakes, and if we teach the
I'm going to
mistakes
interrupt you,
we've made.
Mr. Lee, that your 3-minute time has come.
Okay. So anyways, I'm a run-in for the third candidate. That would have been Melissa Lortz's place. And my name is Lee Van Landite, and if when you leave, I can give you a sheet of paper that spells my name, that has it on there. I won't do it during the meeting, but I'll be back here. Please take one. I talked to Derek Kalish, and he said it's intent. So if you get Lee Van or something like that, I'm okay. You don't have to spell the whole thing. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
On reports, district administrators report, Mr. Bork.
Okay, so just a couple of upcoming things to make the board aware of. One, I will be out of the district from this Wednesday, the 13th through the 20th, so John Bosworth will be in charge in my absence. We'll have limited availability, but we'll try to check in periodically in the case of an emergency. Thursday, the 21st, we have our next committee meetings. Buildings and property will start at 6, personnel to follow. I anticipate that being around 7:15, but we will post the agenda next week with the exact time of personnel, which will follow. Then the following Monday, the 25th, which is the first day of spring break for our staff and students, and that continues the entire week. The 25th is also the last day for our informational meetings regarding the referendum. We will hold 2 meetings, one at 11 a.m., one at 5 p.m. at the Richland Center High School auditorium on Monday the 25th. So encourage folks to attend that. And then 2 items regarding the election itself. One, March 29th at noon is the deadline set by the state for anyone to register as a write-in candidate. So that would be the Friday at noon prior to the Tuesday election. And then the last reminder is just to put that on your calendars, April 2nd is election day at each of the municipalities. So, any questions from the board regarding any of those? Thank you.
All right, then for reports, board member reports.
Curriculum met on March 5th. We did add a couple items to the schedule for April, which include summer school plans and the community 4K updates. We moved those from March to April. And then we spent the majority of the meeting talking about our current goals and priorities, and that update is coming to the full board at our next meeting, the 25th. Mr. Ostrander gave a technology update, which they have several projects that they are working on and coming up. Some of those being looking at new Chromebooks, and then there was upgrading the servers, and then the network evaluation, which I think they were pleased that they finally figured out where there were some internet issues, and those plan to be corrected. And then we did discuss the learning management system review. We got an update on that. So they're still gathering information on those learning management systems, but the plan would be to wrap up that research and surveys and then officially adopt one learning management system for the 24-25 school year at the end of this month.
Thank you, Ms. Wertz. The Personnel Committee met February 15th. Just talked over the negotiations process for the certified staff, which is going to be coming up at the 25th personnel meeting. Budget projections and also draft budget for the 24-25 school year. Mr. Troxel gave a presentation on the curriculum leader, teacher leader pilot program, which he shared last meeting with us. The employee wellness program updates, which is looking at the opportunity for our staff to be able to use the facility on their own, where it's just themselves and their family. Then we also talked about some health insurance options, and we did a review of job descriptions as well. And then the policy committee, we met on March 5th. Went through the Neola policy updates, which we will be voting on later tonight. We also talked about policy 5851, which is the school events on holidays, Sundays, and Wednesdays, which we'll be looking at that tonight as well. And policy 7510, which is use of district facilities, we'll be looking at bringing that at the next board meeting. And then policy 9500.02, naming of district facilities, we'll be doing the first read-through of that this evening. Any questions on either of those? Moving on to the approval of prior meeting minutes of February 26th, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the prior meeting minutes of February 26th, 2024?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Troxel, do I have a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Dickman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry, let's do a roll call vote, I'm sorry. Ms. Troxel?
Aye.
Abstain.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Financial items, letter A, approval of statement of cash.
I move we approve the statement of cash dated March 6, 2024.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Mr. Bosworth, do you have anything to highlight?
Yeah, what I would draw your attention to on the statement of cash is the fact, if you look at the state investment pool general ending balance, we have received about 2/3 of our levy payments from municipalities. All of them are paid to date. We'll have the final third will come in the summer. And then also keep in mind that we did levy additional money this year for defeasement towards debt, which we'll talk about later on in the meeting. So you should look at that number, keep those two things in mind.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mr. Doda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
On to financial items B, approval of invoices.
I move we approve Community First Bank General Checking Account checks number 86071 through 86120, ACH number 232-401-113 through 232-401-171, and EFT number 2023-00072 through 202-3000076 for a net total of $659,029.42. This is for the purpose of general operating costs of the district.
Mr. Bosworth, anything to highlight?
Yeah, a couple things to point out. On page 4, about 3/4 of the way down there, you'll see an expenditure for credit reimbursement. That's paid through one of our grants, through a title grant. Some of our title money needs to be appropriated towards our private school partners, and that's some credit reimbursement towards one of those teachers working towards a specific certification. A couple line items down, you can see there's a payment, about $16,000 to the City of Richland Center for the Community Resource Officer. Remember that we levied in Fund 80 some additional money to help pay for that resource officer. On the following page, page 5, nearly to the bottom there, the third from the bottom, you'll see there's an expenditure for McKinney-Vento students. Public schools are obligated to help out students who are classified as homeless. And one of the things we need to do is help them pay for transportation. So that would be an expenditure towards that. And then there was one more, I thought. Second to last page, page 8. All the way at the bottom there, you can see there is a payment for the UW-Madison Applied Population Lab. So that's already taken place, but there's the payment for it. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Do we have a second for the motion?
A second.
Mr. Hunterman, thank you. And Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda items, approval of consent items. Do I have Ms. Coleman?
Motion to waive policy 5851, school events on Wednesdays, Sundays, and holidays to allow the RCHS Student Council and the RCHS FBLA to attend their respective conferences on Sunday, April 7th, 2024. Motion to accept the donation of cash valued at approximately $300 from an anonymous donor per policy 7230. And motion to approve the donation of money valued at approximately $500 each for RCHS, RCIS, RCPS, and ROA to be used for math and science per policy 7230.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Ms. Dickman?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
On behalf of the Richland School Board, I'd like to thank the anonymous donor and ExxonMobil for their generosity towards the Richland School District. And then budget revisions.
That was part of
That was part of consent?
consent.
Okay. And do I have a motion to approve the modified agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Motion made by Ms. Wertz. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Dickman. Any questions? Ms. Wertz?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
District transfers and vacancies. Mr. Ward.
Okay, so you'll see 5 attachments to this particular agenda item as we start to get into that time of year where we've got 2 different years we're talking about. So starting off with the current year, the 23-24, we do still have a world language position that we are searching for 4th quarter due to a resignation that is in the certified transfers and vacancies. Also sticking with 23-24, in the support staff, we have a guidance administrative assistant position as well as night custodian still available. Night custodian will just continue. That can be one that starts whenever. Guidance counselor, again, we're going to try to get somebody hired for that in the near future. And then final 23-24 is we do have a vacancy in the administrative assistant to the business office bookkeeper due to the resignation of Melanie Walters. Then moving on to the 24-25 support staff, we do have resignation effective at the end of this fiscal year for cross-categorical aid, so we've got that position posted, and then we've got several teaching positions that are open due to either resignation, that they were on a 1-year contract, or retirement. Those are listed on that PDF. We are in the middle of the hiring process. All certified staff, teachers and administrators must go to the board for approval, so you may see some of those enclosed, and then those would be released in press release. Any questions from the board regarding any of those? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Letter B, new policy 9500.02, naming of district facilities, first reading. Mr. Moore?
Okay, so this is a proposed policy, policy 9500.02, which outlines the procedures for naming of a district facility. Maybe a little background information on new policies, just to make sure everyone's aware. So anytime there's a new policy, not a revised policy, but new, first must be proposed in the form of an item of information. That's what we're doing here tonight. This is it's called the first reading. We're not actually going to read every word of it, but it is presented in the body of the memo as well as an attachment in the agenda, both places. If there are no concerns tonight, then we will put this on the next agenda item, and there will be in twofold. One, there will be a specific agenda item related to public comment regarding this agenda item, regarding this policy. That will be in addition to our normal public comment. So So we'll give our stakeholders an opportunity to comment specifically on this policy. And then later on in that board meeting, the board would have a chance to act on that policy, either approve it or send it back to the policy committee, either through not making a motion or a second or a failed vote. So that's kind of the general procedure of what will happen regarding a new policy. The policy itself, naming of district facilities, this is a policy that was taken primarily from a combination of McFarland as well as some local school districts as an opportunity to allow a clear procedure for different buildings or parts of buildings to be named after individuals, okay? This could come in the form of a sponsorship, it can come in the form of commemoration, but this policy would outline what that looks like. If the policy is approved, then we would be working, again, at the policy committee on what a contract looks like and the actual procedures and guidelines on what that looks like. But the policy does include guidelines on what's considered and the procedures that happen, what happens if there's a naming of a facility and it gets destroyed through an act of God, if it gets demolished, if it's sold, those kinds of things, as well as the evaluation, the approval process, the renewal process, as well as the proposed application form. If somebody is interested in applying for one of those positions, what does that look like? So that is all part of the policy itself. And again, I'm happy to answer any general questions from the board, but really just wanted to make sure that the board and the public knew that this was on here. This has gone through the policy committee, comes at the recommendation of the policy committee, but the next board meeting there would be a public opportunity to weigh in on this, as well as the board having an opportunity to weigh in on it as well. But I just want to answer any questions that the board may have. Of course, if any comes up after tonight's meeting, I'm happy to answer those as well. Thank you.
All right, moving on to number 9, information and discussion items. Letter C, summary of district's debt.
So while Mr. Bosworth gets ready, I'll just kind of preface it by saying the district does have numerous debt payments that we make, numerous loans or bonds that we make payments on. And we thought it would be good to give the board an overview of where we're at with our debt and some of the things that we have done the last couple of years to change that debt schedule and that payment schedule. There are a bunch of PDFs on there. I believe Mr. Bosworth will be going through each one of them. I apologize, but the board members to my right are going to probably have to turn around in order to see the presentation.
Okay, Mr. Board asked for kind of a high-level summary of some of our debt. All these PDFs are also in board docs, so you can take a look at them in either location. The first debt, we're kind of going back about 10 years roughly, and just taking an overview of where did some of our debt come from. In 2011, we entered into about $410,000 of debt through something called the QZAB loan. The QZAB program is no longer available, but for the time being, it was something where districts with high poverty levels could apply, and then the federal government would help with interest payments. So it was a very low interest or no interest loans, and the money needed to be used for repairs in the buildings. We did that to the tune of $410,000, and we paid that off in 2023. In 2014, we entered into another kind of similar program. This is also no longer available to school districts, but at the time, schools could levy more money inside of their revenue limit if the money went towards energy efficiency. So we did this in our school district, and we upgraded excuse me, a lot of lighting, lot of doors, windows, a lot of heating elements, those sorts of things. This, we are scheduled to make the final payment on this loan later on in the school year. In 2019 and 2020, and possibly before that, years prior to that, but this is the data I could find, we needed to do some short-term borrowing. And some school districts need to do this when their cash flow gets low and they can't keep up with some expenditures, but yet they know they have some money coming later on in a couple months. And so we were in that situation in 19 and then again in 20. So we would borrow money to the tune of 1.9 or 1.5 million, pay it back very shortly thereafter, but with an additional interest payment. And those are paid for out of Fund 10. In 2012, I am not entirely certain where this debt came from, but we came into debt to the tune of about 2.225 million. Mr. Board, do you have any idea where this debt was expended?
Off the top of my head.
Towards? Yep, okay, so I'm not sure there either.
Is that the state investment pool or for the retirement plan?
Could very well be, but I don't know the history behind it.
Okay, because I know we had to take some debt on to get caught up in what we needed to pay on that.
That sounds right. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, unfunded liability. There you go. And then that was restructured, refinanced in 2020 to pay off general obligation bonds, to pay off at lower interest rates. And that is currently, we'll be making payments on that through about 2031. And this is paid out of Fund 38, which means it comes out of our revenue limit. So the disadvantage to paying a loan, a bond like this faster, is that it comes directly at the expense of paying for buses and basketballs and things like that. It's out of the same revenue pot. So that's still there. And then the last one I want to bring you to your attention is in 2016, we did a capital referendum, largely centered around safety improvements. That's when we upgraded the entrances at all the buildings. And if you notice here, the way that this loan repayment was structured, it's interest-only payments through about 2024. And this is the loan that we have started to defease payments on. So a couple things, I don't know the history here. My guess is it was structured like this to maybe pay some other debts off first and then take this one on perhaps. This is paid, because it's a capital referendum, it's paid out of Fund 39. So this is this unique situation where communities are allowed to go beyond their revenue limit to pay down debt like this faster. So this was the original, the way the loan was originally structured. The second graph to take a look at is the one-time defeasement payment. So this has definitely already happened. So you can see that the defeasement payment from last year, about 1.7 million, definitely decreased significantly the overall principal left to pay, and would have shortened the loan to some degree. And then along those same lines, if you take a look at the 2016 referendum two-time defeasement payment, this is showing our budget this year includes a little over $3 million towards defeasement of this loan. And you can see that, again, severely drops that principal down and then shortens the length of the payment even more significantly. And to help you understand some dollars there, if the district would have stuck with this payment plan, we would have paid about, these are big numbers, round numbers, we would have paid about $3.5 million in interest over the length of this loan. If after we made one defeasance, we saved about $620,000 in interest, so that would bring our total interest payments to about $2.9 million if we would continue on this payment plan. And then if once the second defeasance payment takes place, that would bring another savings of about $740,000 in interest, which would bring the overall interest paid on this loan down to about $2.1 million. So 3.5 decrease to 2.1. So hopefully those big dollar values can help people understand the thought and the value behind doing defeasance to save some of that interest money. And then finally, here is just an overall view of what's left. So one more payment roughly to go on this energy efficiency loan. This is the 2016 referendum payment that's still out there that we're defeasing on. And then this is that refinanced unfunded liability that's here that we'll be paying on that for quite a while. So I'll give you a grand total there of about 8.8 million. And then the final graph shows after that defeasance payment is made this school year. The energy efficiency, the bond series, those are still the same dollar values, but the 2016 referendum bond, that's decreased significantly. And so that brings the overall debt down to about 5.7 million. Just some things to keep in mind here. The Fund 38 versus 39 is if it's paid out of 38, it has to be paid out of our operating revenue. If it's out of 39, then it can be added on to the top of our revenue limit. Capital referendums are out of Fund 39. Okay, so there's a high-level overview of the current debt. Is there any questions I could try to help answer?
How do we compare to similar sized school districts, especially in our area with the amount of debt that we're carrying? Do you have any idea?
I do not have any idea. I can definitely dig into that and let you know at the next meeting.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Okay.
Moving on to number 10, action items. Policy revisions, Neola recommendations.
Okay, so item 10A. If you remember in the fall, one of the things, well, let me back up even further. Last summer, we entered into an agreement with Neola to help do an audit of all of our policies. We did that. We adopted them as of July 1st. And then one of the things that subscription allows us to do is let Neola recommend changes as it relates to legal changes, best practice with other school districts, those kinds of things, and allows our policy committee to not only hear those and hear what all of those individual changes are, but then focus on policies specific to our school district. Instead of going through this 10-year cycle, tackling each group of policies every year, this allows us to take a more global approach. Okay, so last fall, Neola brought their fall revisions to us. The board approved those. This is the second. Generally speaking, Neola will bring 2 updates every year, one in the fall, one in the spring. Okay, and so again, these are changes due to best practice, more politically correct wording, state statutes, state law, those kinds of things that are in there. So there are 2 PDFs attached. One is a technical change. These are just for the board to be aware of. These are changes that perhaps there was a word change, a spelling change, grammatical fixes, changes that make the policy read better, but doesn't change any of the content of the policy in terms of its intent or the spirit of that policy. And so by our policy, the board is made aware of those technical changes. The other is the revision changes, and that PDF lists, there's kind of two sections to it. The first couple of pages are a summary of each of the policies that are being changed and why. This was done from Neola, so this is the Wisconsin Overview and Comments, Volume 33, Number 1. They were putting the final touches on this in December 2023. Our policy committee has spent the last couple of meetings going through those. And then after that, you would have to look at each one of those policies to determine, to see the actual policy, you would have to click on the policy within our board docs. But those are the proposed changes, and these revised changes, again, have been recommended by Neola, been through our policy committee, and now being brought to the board for action on those revisions. Any questions on that, or any specific policy that I can try to answer for you? Okay.
Can I get a motion to approve the recommendation from the policy committee to approve the policy revisions by Neola as represented, effective immediately?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mrs. Dickman. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Troxel. Any further discussion? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Letter B, policy revision for policy 5851, school events on Wednesdays, Sundays, and holidays.
Okay, so this would be one of those policies that our policy committee was able to tackle that had more of a local interest in the way our current policy was read. And so by having Neola, it allowed the policy committee to look at this. Policy 5851 centers around when we can have school events on Wednesdays, Sundays, or holidays. And the background information regarding this particular proposed change is that current policy reads that if the district is closed on a district-observed holiday, but not an actual holiday, that there can still be no activities, there can be no practices, those kinds of things. Okay, and the intent on that has always been that our custodial crew and our maintenance crew, they deserve that holiday off as well, and therefore we didn't want to have custodial requirements on those days. An example would be if Christmas Eve fell on a Sunday and Christmas Day fell on the Monday. The Tuesday, December 26th, that would be considered a district-observed holiday for the 24th, okay, because we're not open on that Sunday anyway. That's the example we're talking about here. What that does, however, is it puts a burden on those folks who have events coming up on the 27th or 28th. In fact, we had a local team, a district team, that actually had to practice at a neighboring school district because our policy did not allow for them to practice on campus. And so the policy committee is recommending the changes there, and this is in the body of the policy. The red strike through is being omitted and the green is added. And so essentially what letter C is being proposed to read is that school events or activities, including voluntary practices, are not to be scheduled on holidays, the actual holiday, period. School events or activities on days which the district is closed due to the observance of a holiday but not the actual day of a holiday may be scheduled with the approval of the district administrator and only in cases where additional custodial services are not needed or required. So our coaches, for an example, would have a key to the facility. If we did not need to plow snow, those kinds of things, we can get in safely. We would allow those events to happen in our facilities and not force our teams to find off-campus sites. In the past, we had used the campus gym. That's no longer available, which is what precipitated them having to use a neighboring district this year. That's the intent of this. Again, policy committee members are here as well, but again, happy to answer any questions on background or a scenario that you may be thinking about.
Can I get a motion to approve the recommendation from the policy committee to revise policy 5851, school events on Wednesdays, Sundays, and holidays as presented?
I so moved.
Motion by Mrs. Dickman, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mrs. Wertz. Any further discussion? Ms. Troxel?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Would also add that, just looking at the calendar and the way the calendar sits, I don't see that even being a situation around Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's, for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. I move to move into closed session pursuant to section 19.851 C, E, and/or F, and of the Wisconsin statutes 118.125 to consider employment, promotion, compensation of employees, discussing individual employee hiring and administrator evaluations, and to discuss student open enrollment applications and individual pupil information related to those applications. The board may take action on these items in closed session if necessary and appropriate. At the conclusion of the closed session, the board will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Doudna. Any discussion? Mr. Doudna?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.